is the greatest moment in my life.
A crafty puff at the very, very last second. Professional as always.
Hey yo.
Hello. You just went for the big like reveal, didn't you? Bit come out the smoke, and it's on this day. I see.
See, that's funny that you went straight to Edge's entrance, which is, cool as fuck. Let's be honest. In my head, I was thinking stars in their eyes.
Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be
choking on my vape. He was a funny bloke, wasn't he?
Who, Matthew Kelly?
Yeah.
He was he weren't really that funny. He was all right.
No, I don't mean funny as in, a comedian. I mean just a funny bloke.
Just looking.
Looking. He was like, he weren't just gangly, he was really tall as well. He was like sort of Stretch Armstrong, wasn't he?
He did one of the best shows ever though in You Bet.
Oh yeah, You Bet. Bloody hell.
How bloody good was that show?
That was good.
That showed, before we even got Britain's Got Talent and Dancing Dogs, that showed the weird talents that British people actually had.
Yeah, see, that's fun. Speaking of 90s stuff like that, do you see Challenge Annika's coming back?
Jesus, is she not like in a wheelchair?
No.
70-year-old.
See, now I got bad images in my head now of a mobility scooter, but the blue and yellow with a little flag on the back,
being dragged by a helicopter.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's advertised. I think it's on Channel 5. It's coming back.
I mean, that'll lead really well into my Hall of Lame later on.
Is it Annika Rice?
It is. It's the original Challenge Annika is going in the Hall of Lame.
I used to like Challenge Annika. I used to like the little buggy strode around him.
It was never a show for me.
No.
I mean, the people in like the control room just piss arsing about, saying, Annika, go over there to the woods. There's something in there. Bollocks. Yeah, it was rubbish.
Yeah. The thing is, as well, you think now with the advent of all the stuff we get on mobile phones now, isn't that going to take away a big chunk of the work she's got to do?
Well, I mean, she's not going out playing Pokemon Go and she has to go and find a Snorlax.
Challenge Annika, find this particular Pokemon. You've got until the ad break. No, what I mean is she was always running all over the place, picking stuff up, and she just get it all off Amazon now, can't she? On her phone.
Challenge Annika to order on Prime free delivery.
Challenge Amazon. I did not think that the first few minutes of our wrestling show, our wrestling podcast, we are a wrestling podcast. I did not
double the amount of wrestling this week.
Exactly. I did not think that we would begin talking about Annika Rice in a mobility scooter.
Madness.
But there we go, mate. There we go. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be watching or listening from. This is Chain Wrestling Live with Mags and Si, an SJP World Media production, episode 112. I am Si, and with me, as always, is last week's poorly lad. To my feeling glad that he's better now. The sick note to my... I'll just get my coat, because these entrance jokes, they don't get no better, do they? Let's be honest. They are. I struggle some weeks. I'll be honest with you. I struggle. A podcaster that is always up for a four-way, whether it's fatal or otherwise. Lord Mags. Are you feeling better, my friend?
I mean, yeah, but those fatal four-ways that I'm involved in usually leads to a hefty prison sentence.
Is that so?
No, yeah, even for me, the coughing last week was ridiculous. I mean, you know me, I would have happily just gone on with it, but yeah, I thought it was too much for the CWF to have to bear, so I ducked out. And poor Sa was instantly, shit, he's gone mental again.
I wasn't. I was just asking if you were.
I'm gonna have to draft in 6 new guest horse with this, but no, I wasn't mental. I was just had a cough.
right on time here. 5 minutes after the show starts, I've got a reminder from Facebook to be ready because we have a live show soon. So thank you for that, Facebook.
For what's happened in the past.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Yeah. Ah, there we go, mate. There we go. I'm glad you're feeling better, though. I'm glad you're feeling
Thank
better.
you very much. I appreciate that.
Look how nice we're being. You know, we must have missed each other.
No, not overly.
No, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Go to the chat and see who has joined us and who maybe has missed us, Mags.
Well, first of all, Connor jumped in very, very early. Said, hello, Mags. Good to see your faces again. An hour and 15 minutes before he gets to see our faces again, which is kind of weird. Is he looking through our windows?
Partially my fault. Because when, well, in America, they've changed their times all over the place, aren't they? You know,
okay.
You know, so when I put the standard tweet out, 9 p.m. UK, I put 4
so
p.m. Eastern.
Poor Connor, you've had poor Connor sat there waiting. He's like, this should have started by now. He may have gone on to do other things by now, so you might have lost us a viewer there. But anyway, welcome, Connor, if you're still here. Pig's Bladder in the chat. Hello, sir. How are you? And here we go. Sharon, it's Monday night. You know what that means. Griffin number 1 is in the chat. Cam, evening CWF. And more tonight, Magsy, I'm going to be one of the guys from ZZ Top. Ironically, they're not the one with the last name Beard.
No, Dave
Sharon,
Beard, isn't it, the drummer?
Is that what he was called?
His name's Dave Beard, yeah, and he was
no beard. Yeah, weird.
And the other guy was called Dusty Hill. Dusty Hill, which is a great name, but he's dead.
Sharon saying hello to the rest of the CWF. He's dead. Brilliant. Just I can't segue out of that, so I might as well just move on.
Should we start again? Should we just go and come back?
No, come on. We'll plow through. We will plow through. So basically, we've got all of the CWF shouting each other out, which we love to see. We love the fact that you are all a big gang and you pay no attention whatsoever to us. It's like going to a mother's meeting and not listening to the people talking. You just chat amongst yourselves, don't you?
Most of the mothers in that scenario will be going, why are those two blokes here?
Yeah, they don't look like mothers. So yeah, it's just a lot of the CWF. Oh, Dan Griffin. Yeah, hello, sir. How are you? Can't beat a 50-50 chain wrestling. Well, you can by having a clear winner. But yeah, we did have to sit through 2 matches. And in fact, I sat through the majority of the TNA pay-per-view. Which was,
did you really? Okay.
I mean, it was okay.
Yeah,
I didn't watch a lot of TNA around them, so it was interesting. Sharon saying she can't tag on her iPad, but hi to everyone. And Connor is actually still in the chat. He went off and cooked himself a nice salmon and rice, ready to sit back. Well, apologies, Connor, for SARS idiocy. I mean, I feel like I'm apologising for that on a daily basis, but yeah, I apologise and hope you enjoy the show. And then Scottish down there. But he's dead.
Yeah. Well, you know, and they're still touring. There was only 3 of them. A third of the band is dead.
He just like that in a coffin.
No, he's not touring.
With a guitar sellotape to the coffin.
Oh, this has not started well. Dear me. Oh, let's have a look at the t-shirt there, Magsy. What you got there?
It's the Elite, the Golden Elite.
Oh, lovely stuff. I've not seen that one before.
I have worn it before. Just I think it's the camera angle. Yeah.
I've got a rather lovely t-shirt that's bought for me. That this is fantastic for the podcast listeners, obviously. But I got a rather lovely t-shirt there that is the legend that is Minoru Suzuki. But I get annoyed because a lot of people think it's the Emperor from Star Wars, and it's not.
Oh, it could also be the Emperor Ming from
Ming and Mercies.
Yeah, exactly.
Magsy, we have got a packed show, a huge show. We've got a non-wrestling topic, which always does well with the CWF. We always get loads of responses for that. So it kind of, I suppose, looking at it from a time-wise, standpoint, it fills a great deal of the show up. And then we go and get a 50-50 poll. So that fills quite a bit of the show up as well. So
it does.
It does. So I think we should
Thankfully.
crack on. Yeah, I think we should crack on and get through our stuff as quickly as we possibly can so we don't run out of time. So I guess we should chuck some dog shit into the Hall of Lane, my friend.
Let's do it.
The Hall of Indeed. Magsy, what you got for us?
Okay, so this week I've been thinking about how unoriginal the world is in general. A lot of things are rinsed and recycled and repeated. And when you get to the world of entertainment, it seems that it's worse. I mean, for every kind of screen movie, there's a scary movie. For every a change in attitude, there's a natural nats.
Fuck you.
You know, things that just are a pale imitation of the original. Like try to be carbon copies. And just don't stand up to that test of time. And in wrestling, it's even worse. I mean, we always talk about how wrestling is cyclical and that things are repeated over and over. It's storylines, gimmicks. I mean, look at the Rock and Roll Express. Ended up being copied by the Rockers and then ended up being copied by the Young Bucks. You look at the Ultimate Warrior and Renegade. You look at licking Hogan's boots and you see how many times Ed Leslie's rehashed a gimmick to do that. But usually with a wrestler and a gimmick, the consensus is that you take that person's personality, turn it up to 11, and that makes the best gimmick. Now, if people cast their minds back a couple of weeks, we had a Hall of Lame entrant that was exactly that. It was the personality of the said person turned up to 11, and it turned out that it was more of a knobhead than he was in real life, and that was the narcissist Lex Luger. Now, when a gimmick flops as much as the narcissist Lex Luger flopped, you would think that can go in the box of gimmicks and we'll leave it there. Oh, no, not the WWF. They love to rehash shitty gimmicks to see if it'll work. Vince has clearly never heard of the saying where if you do the same thing and expect different results, that you are an idiot, because he does that on the regular. So in 2003, a young up-and-comer wrestler by the name of Mark Jindrak, he made his way from WCW, part of a faction called the Natural Born Thrillers. Young, jacked. He looked every bit of a wrestler, but he was just a little bit wooden when it comes to character work. Now, people will know about Mark Jindrak being the almost man in Evolution. And then when he finally did kind of break into the WWF main roster, he was partnered up with Garrison Cade for a little while. And then when that went under, he was repackaged as the reflection of perfection. Now, this reflection of perfection character was essentially Lex Luger 2.0. He came out to the ring with one of those three-way mirrors where he would just stare at his own body, do pretty much everything that Lex Luger did, apart from have a metal pole in his forearm. He went on a little bit of a win streak. Unfortunately, he was limited to velocity. He wrestled on jacked a little bit, but eventually he was actually given a manager in Teddy Long. He was part of Teddy's thugging and bugging stable. Ironically, as the only white member, the rest of them were pretty much all African American. But Teddy Long was not long for management. He ended up being called up to SmackDown for to take over the general manager spot. And that just meant the total end of Mark Jindrak and the reflection of perfection. So for 3 months in 2004, Mark Jindrak was Lex Luger 2.0. And if Lex Luger 1.0 went into the Hall of Fame, a crap copy has to follow. So this week's entrance for me is Mark Jindrak, the reflection of perfection.
I think that is a great shout. I think that is a great shout. It's not a character I remember masses about.
Well, you watch Velocity, you probably don't remember anything about.
I don't remember a lot of Velocity, no. I mean, Scottish Danny's the guy to ask about Velocity, isn't he? Let's be honest. You know, he loves all those weekend shows. But yeah, not a good look. Not a good look. Especially when you think that a rip-off of a gimmick that has already not worked. You know,
Scottish Danny is well up on his reflection of perfection knowledge. The theme song was a copy of Lexa 2, and Dan Griffin saying that Velocity and Jacked, that is prime Scottish Danny territory.
Oh, without a date. My Hall of Fame entrant this week, I think, was on Jacked as well at one point. I'm going to have to check what I've got in front of me here just to make sure that is accurate, because I would hate to mislead people with information. Yes, on Jacked as well. But that's something I've learned today, because looking into my entrant for the Hall of Fame today, I've actually learned more about them, and I didn't realize that they'd wrestled in the places they had. I've been going down a little bit of a TNA alleyway, I suppose, a little bit of a TNA run at the moment. There's a great deal of it on YouTube, whole pay-per-views and so on. And you can subscribe to this YouTube premium nonsense and get it for nothing for 30 days, so you don't get the adverts. So I've got,
just download AdBlock Suite and get the adverts blocked, and it costs you nothing.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like something I'd be capable of doing on my own.
It takes 2 seconds.
So looking at just sticking random TNA events on and so on. I've also been listening to Jeff Jarrett's podcast quite a bit at work as well, which is absolutely fascinating.
My world.
Yes, and it's absolutely fascinating with the formation of TNA and what went on with building that company and all the stuff, the behind the scenes and all that. I watched the first TNA episode this week, and it was the weekly pay-per-view format they did.
Yeah, with the ad Wednesdays, I think.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a weekly pay-per-view format and so on. And there was, don't get me wrong, there is a lot on this show that could go into the Hall of Fame, but there was 2 tag teams that really stood out to me, and it was literally the toss of a coin to which one I went for. But there was something that tipped me over the edge to decide to head this way. Have you ever heard of the Dups?
The Dups, like
DUPPS, the Dups.
I don't believe that I have.
Okay. Now, this surprised me because I'm putting them in for what I saw on this episode of TNA. But they've been around other companies as well. I'll read literally straight off the internet in front of me here. The Dups were a professional wrestling tag team in the Southern Independence and ECW during the late 90s. They composed of 4 wrestlers and a valet, and each one, their names would play on different phrases. So one would be called Bo. So his name would be Bowed Up. Jack,
is that a phrase?
I don't know. Jack for Jacked Up.
Yeah,
and Stan was another one. Of course, Stand Up and so on. They wrestled for the ECW Tag Team Championships, it says here at one point. Left ECW because they headed to the WWF, and they had a long period working on their developmental systems and so on. And even wrestled on WWF Jacked, it says here, but before they got released in 2001. I was unaware of any of that. No idea at all. What I saw was what they did after. They headed into TNA, and one of them went on to be Trevor Murdoch. So we're familiar with this guy. He's a much thinner Trevor Murdoch.
Former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. That bout was Harley Race, Dory Funk. I don't need to go down like that. But this was a much thinner Trevor Murdoch, and playing the same sort of gimmick, the same sort of, I suppose, redneck Southern, not overly bright kind of gimmick with the denim, the plaited, the sort of, the check shirts and all that sort of stuff. But one thing that really got me was the Dups were doing an interview backstage, and there's Stand Up and his his cousin, apologies, and they're talking with the interviewer about taking her to meet their girlfriend and their cousins. They're there to watch their debut on TNA. Their girlfriends and their cousins. They take them into this room, and there's one person stood there, Max.
And I bet he was stood up.
No. This was a lady called Fluff Dup. Was her name.
Fuck off.
Yes, that was her name, Fluffed Up. And apparently the description of my cousin's here, my cousin's here, and then my girlfriend's here, and my girlfriend's here, and they go in this room, and all of those people are one person. So they're both in a relationship with their cousin. And yeah, it was not a good look at all. I mean, they
that sounds
it was shit.
Fucked up.
Yes, but it was terrible. I mean, even the gear they were wearing was awful. They the cut off denim shorts that some people wrestle in, especially when they're playing that sort of stereotypical Southern gimmick, and the shorts look a bit tatty, a bit frayed, and so on. It's like they literally just got a pair of jeans, cut the bottom half of the jeans off, and thought they don't look tatty enough. So then cut inch-long strips out. They just look like shit. And then you get the whole, this is my girlfriend and my cousin. And it's also my girlfriend and my cousin. I mean, this is pro wrestling. Would anyone have paid to see this?
Inbred up.
Inbred. But there we go. Yeah, so that is my entrance into this week's Hall of Fame. The Dups, and they apparently they hail from Lizard Lick in North Carolina, which I thought that's bollocks. But I looked it up.
That's
it's
a
real
towing company.
Place.
Yeah, that's a towing company.
Is it really? It's a real place.
There's genuinely a reality show called Lizard Lick Towing.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
and
they're hillbillies as well. I wonder if they were called the Dups.
It was not a good look, mate. It was not.
This has led for comedy gold in the chat because there was a sexually frustrated member called Bricked Up. There was one who took a lot of drugs. He was called Coked Up.
Honestly, you can find like so much TNA on YouTube now, and if you go and check out that first episode of, first of all, it ends with a Royal Rumble. Madly enough, I think it's like a 15 or 14 man Royal Rumble, but they call it a Gold Rush Gauntlet or Gold Gauntlet or something like that, and it's to crown their first world champion, and that's for the main event of the show. But then you also have all these other characters being introduced, and I mean there is some shit, but then there's some good as well. It's worth checking out for how brilliant TNA and eventually Impact Wrestling became. That first pay-per-view is definitely worth seeing. But just not for the Dups.
It sounds.
So those are your entrants into this week's Hall of Fame. We have Mark Jindrak as the Narcissist 2.0. Was it Reflection of Perfection, Magsy?
Reflection of Perfection, correct.
And the cousin shagging Southern redneck family, the Dups. Not a good look, mate. Not a good look. Do we have anything else in the chat before we get to even more from the CWF from our non-wrestling topic?
There was a chicken-obsessed, clumsy French one called Cocked Dump. Don't forget Uncle Fucked Dump. These are brilliant. The Dups, Jesus Christ. Cam is asking Scottish Danny if he could do a Heat look back podcast. And Danny says, yes, he can because he's got years and years already downloaded. Not like he's breaking any laws there. That WWE will never put on the network due to licensing issues. So that's that expect that up coming up on the SJP World Media.
What I don't understand.
network.
So, I don't know if you know yourself, Magsy, the details on that, or if Danny can let us know himself in the chat, if you don't mind, Danny. WWE surely would own all the stuff for Sunday Night Heat. Why would there be licensing issues? Music, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe it was the deal with the channel that Heat was on.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Okay.
I have no idea. Let's see what else there is. Dan Griffin says Velocity and Jack, that is prime Scottish Dan territory. And then Scottish Dan says truth that Mark Ginrat was a king on Saturday nights, and then a bit of jealousy, rivalry. King's Pigs Bladder says he's a king every single day, which is absolutely true. And yeah, Scottish Dan says it was because a lot of it was on MTV, and I knew it was on it wasn't on the regular like kind of USA, TNN, UPS or whatever. UPN, whatever networks it was on. So, yeah.
I've just seen Dan Griffin's comment there.
There was one fell choice. He was called Sir Powell. Tripped up.
Tripped up. Fucking the Dups, man. It's not a good look whatsoever.
It sounds like typical hawker backyard southern wrestling.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. But in like 2002 or whatever it was,
ridiculous.
It doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. And the fact that they were in the WWE doing something very similar, it's not a good look.
No, definitely not.
No, Magsy, I suppose then we better get on with more from the CWF with our non-wrestling topic, my friend.
Let's go for it.
NWT time. Oh, no wrestling talk here. It's the non-wrestling topic.
Lovely.
Nice. Lovely. Nice.
Ooh, lovely.
Lovely.
So then, we basically ran an old favorite, Ask Us Anything. And we've got all sorts coming into us, Mags. Some serious, some not so much. Some wrestling based, even though it's a non-wrestling topic, but we'll allow it. A couple of food based ones as well, I suppose. But yeah, I'll just, I suppose, go through them on Twitter in the order they arrived into us, my friend.
Great fun, and I'll try and keep up as well as thinking of ridiculous answers.
First of all, we have King Pigs Bladders at Pigs Bladders on Twitter. And he asks, what was the last thing you purchased that you put some serious thought into, but afterwards realized it was shit?
Oh, I mean, I have got a reputation in my house of buying things that don't live up to the hype.
Okay.
So this isn't really answering the question, but it's took me a long time to get out of this this reputation I've got. So a long time ago, I bought a letter holder. So it was where you put your mail when it comes to your lap. Basically, you put this kind of like holder on the wall near your letterbox to put all your mail in, so it's not sat on the floor.
So, it holds your letters, yeah?
Yeah. But when it came, you couldn't fit a normal sized envelope in it. It was that small. It was like a letter holder for a doll's house. And then about 2 weeks later, I thought I'd do a nice thing and secretly order some new towels for the bathroom. And they came, and they were about the size of tea towels.
Fantastic.
Again, like the size of a doll's house towel. So yeah, for ages I had that reputation that if I buy something, it's going to be ridiculously small or just not fit for purpose. But since then, I think I've made up for that because I bought one of those veg chopper things where you put your pieces of veg on it, chops it into like little cubes or into sticks and stuff like that. And it's amazing. It's the best thing ever. I'd chop veg that I don't have any intentions of eating just for the sake of chopping it. So,
Just finely sliced carrots everywhere.
yeah, just we're going through. It's costing me a fortune in potatoes because we're just going through them. But I think the last thing that I really put a lot of effort in buying and researching, and then I wouldn't say it's shit, but I haven't used it. I bought PlayStation VR, and I used it for about 3 games, and now it's just gathering dust on a shelf. Yeah,
Fantastic.
so maybe that.
Yeah, okay. I'm stumped on this because I don't buy a lot of stuff. I think Sharon might be a good one in the chats to shout out things that I've bought that have been shit in the past, because I imagine she'll be able to remember a lot more than I. So I put a lot of thought into. Whenever the vape
nothing.
Oh yeah, totally. So whenever the vape shop runs out of the one particular vape I like, I put loads of thought into what I'm going to get, and it always ends up being shit. Always, without fail.
I hate this.
There we go. Sharon's just said the fish jacket.
And also
my trainers aren't shit. My trainers are.
So I mean, you can't just leave the fish jacket at that. You need to explain.
Okay,
that needs context.
So I ordered a pretty cool looking jacket. It's sort of like a black or almost like not leathery, but it's a cool looking jacket anyway. Online, and
it's cool looking online. Just...
No, and it looks cool in person as well. Really smart. But when it arrived, it was all like vacuum packed and like shrunk down, so it travels. So it can travel smaller, I guess.
Yeah.
So you had to undo it, hang it up for bloody ages, and all that. And I kept thinking, what the fuck is that smell? I was like, what is that whiffs? What is that? And it turns out it was my jacket, and it smelled of fish. Now, it had come from, I think, China. So it might have come over on a boat load of fish or something. Do we get fish from China? I don't know. But but it's stag fish, right? So I had a gig to go to that weekend. I wanted to wear this jacket. So I did the whole hanging it outside for days on end, covering it in Febreze, and it seemed to absolutely sort it out. It was like...
I mean, did you not attempt washing it?
I didn't know if I'd wash it if it would fuck it up, because it was just like
it ended up with a tiny fishy jacket.
So, but it seemed to sort it out, and I thought, okay, that's the business. That's sorted. That is brilliant.
That's
so.
Amazing.
I went to go see an Oasis tribute act at the Guildhall in Gloucester, and me and my sister go pretty much every year when they come through. They are absolutely fantastic. It's a good night out, but it gets quite warm in Gloucester Guildhall. So as they're sort of about half hour into their set, I'm thinking,
it's returned.
It's a bit whiffy again, isn't it? What is that? Is that? But then of course the paranoia sets in, and I spend my whole evening sniffing my jacket to see if it really does. And I'm going up to my sister going, "Do I smell? Can you smell my jacket for me?" Eventually she was like, "Look, yeah, you stink." So,
of salmon.
Yeah. Oh yes, it was not. So I put a lot of thought into this. I wanted a new jacket, and I don't buy much, as I said. Yeah, and it ends up just being whiffy like cod, mate.
Have you still got this jacket?
Yeah, it's hung up in my wardrobe here.
And does it still stink of fish?
No, Sharon washed it.
And did it ruin it?
No, I mean, she's got a comment in the chat there actually saying it's a suede-like material that didn't recommend washing. So that's why we didn't want to wash it in the first place.
Ever? I mean, I suppose you could dry clean it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I can just imagine you having to go out in your jacket with a can of air freshener everywhere you go.
But it was that thing of, okay, well, it stinks. I'm not going to wear it if it stinks. If we wash it and it's wrecked, I ain't lost nothing at this point.
Now,
so Sharon,
the house full of cats makes so much more sense.
Yeah, none of them live here. They just follow me home when I'm wearing that jacket.
It's the trail of meow, meow.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it. So there we go. I suppose that jacket. Pig Spatters continues. Which one moment in wrestling history did the most damage to the industry and should have all trace of it removed?
Oof. It's got to, for me, it's got to be anything Hogan related because he's a bit of a cunt. Oh, no, in fact, no. I think it's got to be Benoit
Okay.
because so much kind of like peaks behind the curtains, and not just the storylines going around them, but the way WWE are now have been affected because of how the situation with Benoit went down. They seem to want to placate sponsors and advertisers and licensors more than fans because of the kind of bad blood that they had with the backlash from Benoit. So I think, yeah, that for me was horrific. And then we'd still have Chris Benoit, the amazing wrestler, and not have to kind of like separate his wrestling work from the abhorrent incident that took place. So yeah, I think for me it's the Benoit stuff.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of Benoit being amazing on Nitro Nights, Scottish Danny and I, and it is really difficult. It seems like even though Nitro Nights is a weekly show, it does seem like every episode we're having to sort of prefix talking about how good Benoit's match was. We're saying we don't condone what happened in his life at the end of his life. It's incredibly difficult, incredibly tricky. I agree with you on that viewpoint. I do think some good in the long run came out of that. If you're grasping at straws, if you're looking at, real desperately trying to find some silver lining in some way, in that the concussion issues are now looked after better, I think.
And more awareness of what head injuries and chair shots did to humans. So yeah.
Benoit stuff aside, then I think WCW, the decline of WCW, and that going out of business in the end is just it's a catastrophe for the wrestling business. Going back to even before WCW was WCW with Jim Crockett and all that sort of stuff. So many great shows, great memories, great matches through so many different eras. It's just a real shame. And yes, we've got Impact that came from the sort of ashes in a way of that. And then we've got AEW now, but it's not the same, is it?
No, it's not.
Sean's injury as well. Sean's injury in 98.
No,
we will have no Shawn Michaels slander here. Thank you.
I've lost my smile. I can't wrestle anymore. Why?
Oh yeah,
a title.
That's fair enough. That was a dickhead move, Sean. Pig's Bladders also says, should sausages be compulsory? Yes.
I mean, yeah, there's no other answer. I had a
maybe not with dessert.
Wow. I mean, that actually leads on to an argument that me and the missus has. Now, I've had a liking recently to vegan sausages. Now, my missus says they should not be allowed to be called sausages. Do you agree with that? Would you say vegan sausages should not be allowed to be called sausages?
Well, I suppose description-wise, they are sausages made for vegans. I suppose the
correct.
Take a box.
And that was my argument.
Okay.
It's sausages aren't called sausages because of the meat. They're called sausages because of the shape of a sausage. Okay. But yeah, anyway, to answer the question, it should be compulsory. but Mrs. Maggs hates anything remotely vegan.
Right.
Anything. If it says vegan on the packet, she detests it. So yeah, we had an argument about what constitutes a sausage, and she thinks it has to involve meat.
I picked up a vegan wrap, like your Tesco's meal deal sort of efforts, I grabbed the wrong one in the fridge.
I bet you were fuming.
I got back to work and I was like, what is this? And even the bread was a weird color, man. It was like, I don't know, orange or some shit. And I was like, what is this? And I ate it and it was fantastic. So the next day, I went back and got another one, and I must have just been crazy hungry on that first day because it was absolute shite the next time.
So we recently got there's an app called Too Good to Go where a lot of like big companies will kind of like bag up stuff at the end of play, and you get to buy basically a mystery bag for a few quid. So we bought a Starbucks one, and in this Starbucks mystery bag there was a vegan wrap, spinach and falafel.
Okay.
And being the only one who would attempt anything vegan in this house, I had a go, and it was fucking grim. It was grim. It was like eating soil. I powered through half of it. The second half, it was, that was a no from me. Jesus Christ.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Vegetarians, vegans, each to their own, you know. I just love a bacon sandwich too much, man.
You can
Danny.
get bacon.
Yeah, just don't even go down that road. It's I take as much offense to fake bacon as I do you slandering Shawn Michaels on this show. At Scottish Juggalo on Twitter, our good friend Danny, he says, it's Monday night, 11:25 p.m. You've just wrapped up another awesome episode of Chain Wrestling. Oh, thank you, Danny. And
That's
suddenly,
amazing.
I might just stop there. Actually, we don't need to read anymore, do we? Thanks, Danny. Next, we have suddenly, you're both teleported to Liverpool in the year 1508. You have to explain to people there what exactly pro wrestling is in 15 seconds or less, or face death. How would you explain? Oh my God.
I don't need the 15 seconds. It's people play fighting in their underpants.
Fair enough.
That's what it is. It's essentially scripted play
or
fighting.
Entertainment.
Well, sometimes it depends on the wrestling. Sometimes it's not that entertaining, but
Why Liverpool, Danny?
And why 1508? That's fucking incredibly specific.
What happened in 1508? Did something big happen in 1508?
In Liverpool.
In Liverpool. I imagine something got stolen.
Wow.
Moving on. MGB Graham at MGB Graham on Twitter. He says, okay, Chain Wrestling podcast. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac is the best sporting music of all time. Discuss.
I've not heard it. So
you have.
I don't know it.
It's the Formula One music.
All right, okay. He's right then. That is great music.
But that's like the second half of the song.
So the first half is wank then.
No, the first half's good as well. Okay. It's a good song.
I mean, that or maybe the Ski Sunday music.
How did that go?
I can't remember it now.
I'm certainly
not singing it.
Was that that one?
No. Okay. I've not heard that.
I'm thinking of something else, I think. Match of the Day theme.
No. The best sport of music of all time is Nessun Dorma, isn't it? From Italian Ante.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. I have got a soft spot for the Match of the Day theme because it's Match of the Day starting. You know.
Yeah, speaking of Match of the Day, wasn't that fun this week? Jesus Christ. What was it on for like 20 minutes?
20 minutes. No commentary, nothing. It was shite, man.
I was fully expecting Jermaine Genius to be like, I'm finally in charge. This is my show now.
I respect, in that scenario, though, Jermaine Genius probably wouldn't even notice there's something wrong. He probably just sat in the studio going, where's Gary? You know,
will somebody turn the lights on?
I like the theme tune to the cricket as well, even though I don't like cricket. That's a good one.
I mean, that's scandalous.
Wow, I like the 100. We've covered this before, but I like the cricket music. That was good. But I think Match of the Day for me. But the Chain is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the BBC music for the snooker as well.
Yeah, I know that one. Boom, boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, boom.
That's it.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
so he's wrong. So basically, we're saying that Graham is absolutely wrong in his assumption that that's the best sporting theme ever.
There we go. Glad we.
And even better one is the song from Big Break. That's probably the best one.
It's only a game. So
there we go.
Yeah. If I keep singing, I haven't got to edit any music in for the podcast. It takes me loads of time. AB absolute diamond of a person, leader of the Optimist Club at official AB_POS on Twitter. They say, so, like, I'm not the only one that thinks Evil Clown Oscar is somehow now even hotter, right? I'll agree with that. Evil Oscar's smoking.
Yeah. I mean, any Oscar is smoking, but yeah, the evil one is brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. At Jimmy Evans for real on Twitter. Big supporter of Nitro Nights Chain Wrestling Magazine. Tweets us virtually daily, mate. Tagging us in different hashtags and so
That's
on.
awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Jimmy asks, best female video game character? Chun-Li, all day long.
Yeah, Chun-Li's a good one. Bayonetta, she's pretty
I don't know who that
badass.
is.
Yeah, you won't because it's not from like the 1970s. So Bayonetta's on the Nintendo Wii and Switch, I think. But basically, she's an ass-kicking witch, but she wears glasses and she just looks like a foxy school teacher who would absolutely rip your head off.
Is she a fox?
No, she's a witch. She's a human
Okay.
a human witch.
Okay. Have we had the conversation about Squirrel Girl yet?
That was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
I was made into a squirrel.
Oh, of course.
King's Bladder
Yes,
for that.
I
yeah.
remember. My memory is shocking, isn't it? That is terrible. I
It
don't
is.
remember that.
It's the age.
Mate, honestly, it came to Saturday night and I went, shit, I haven't put the poll out this week. But of course, it was done like a week before. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Lara Croft, I suppose, needs a shape. I mean, I never played those games, but they did really well,
I
didn't
think there's a Lara Croft question, or
There
I saw a
is.
Lara Croft question, so I'm sure we'll
is.
get to that.
they? Dan Griffin, at Dan Griffin21 on Twitter. He asks, who should end Roman's reign as WWE Undisputed Universal Champion, assuming he wins at WrestleMania?
Okay, so for an episode of Badlands, I actually booked this out like as a fantasy book, but the long and short of it was that it ended up being The Rock coming back and claiming the head of the table. So yeah, that's who in a perfect world would win it for me. But it's going to be Cody. It's got to be Cody now, surely.
You'd think so, wouldn't
Yeah.
you? I kind of, the idea of them having the logo up of Roman Reigns 1,000 days as champion does make me wonder, is he going to beat Cody? That's just a little nagging thought in my head. I mean, that may be, something of nothing, but
yeah, I get that, but I think Roman Reigns is well deserved of a break. He's put in some career-defining acting and character work, and I think the story of Cody coming back after being not good enough for the main main event, going away, rebuilding himself as not only as a wrestler but as a man, forming his own wrestling company, not winning that world title, but then making his way back to WWE, winning the big one, which is something that his dad was never able to do in the WWF. And obviously, he was a world champion elsewhere, but in the WWF, I think that story of him finally stepping from his dad's shadow, I think that to me is a great story. So I think Cody has to win.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. Winning the Rumble as well, and I think so. If it's not Cody at Mania, and you want a feel good comeback story, beating all the odds, looking what they've been through in recent years, I'll throw Barry Windham's name in the hat.
The Stalker is your new.
Can you imagine that? If you
undisputed Universal Champion.
If you imagine Roman Reigns,
it's just fucking Barry Windham with a mustache.
Can you imagine Roman Reigns chatting to Paul Heyman on an episode of SmackDown? In the background, you just got Barry Windham with his face painted, lurking behind his soft drinks machine,
peeping through a bush. Like that.
Yeah. Dan also asks, is it worse to piss yourself in public or shit yourself in private?
Anything public. So it's definitely worse to piss yourself in public.
Yeah. Shit yourself in private's got to be better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because when you say private, I'm assuming you mean in your house. You can just go take a shower. Not private as in, you know, you're in a room on your own in somebody else's house. Because that's, you know what I mean?
That'd be, yeah. I mean, if it's in your own house, I would not happily, I would prefer to shit myself than if piss myself out in the middle of town.
If it's in my own
was
house,
the wrong word.
If it's in my own house, I would happily shit myself. Because I've got my little utility belt here and we have some baby wipes and some talcum powder. I'm good to go. Captain Crappy Keggers here.
That's why you always wear brown pants, because instead of washing them, they can go straight in the bin.
There we are, mate. There we are. I suppose if you're not washing them, it doesn't matter what colour they are. You can just chuck them straight in.
I mean, they'll end up brown.
Exactly. Oh, dear me. Michael Rag at Raggy89 on Twitter. A few here, lads, he says. Does Rick Allen, the drummer from Def Leppard, swim in circles?
That's mean. That is mean. But I think he swims like depths rather than lengths.
Yeah. I've seen Def Leppard a few times and I've walked away every time. And I don't know if it's because he's only got one arm now, so some of the more up-tempo songs aren't quite as up-tempo as they once were. I don't know, but
you know the rest of that band, when they're doing the set list, they're putting on the drum solo heavy songs on purpose.
Yeah. Drum solo. That'll take him twice as long now. We can go to the bar.
Oh, brilliant.
We're not nice people. What does Marcellus Wallace look like?
So you probably don't get this, do you?
That's Pulp Fiction.
It is Pulp Fiction.
It is.
You don't see him in it. But I can't tell you what he looks like, but I know what he doesn't look like. He doesn't look like a bitch.
I thought Marcellus Wallace was the guy who gets basically bent over by...
Yeah.
Yeah. So
is.
you do see him, don't you?
Yeah, I suppose. So it looks like that. It looks like a guy being bent over.
Does not look like a bitch. Well, maybe in that scene. Anyway,
a little bit.
Here's the Lara Croft question. Does Lara Croft look better with round boobies or triangular and pointy ones? I'd have to go with round, Mags, if I was choosing a computer-generated shape.
Of a boob?
Yeah.
Now, I think the older Lara Croft look better than the newer versions. So I'm going to go with
older as in age or older as in
like not like a granny. Lara Croft. How sick do you think I am? No, I mean the older games.
The only adventure she goes on now is when she explores the back of the cupboard trying to find those biscuits when you go and visit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the older games
right.
The Lara Croft looks better than the newer one. So I'm going to go with triangle pointy boobs.
Interesting. It's funny that would be the thing that we disagree on the most. But there we go. Danny at Scottish Juggalo on Twitter. He says here, just thought of this one. What exactly was the thing Meatloaf was referring to when he proclaimed, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that?
He wouldn't shit himself in public.
Yeah, okay. But anything else, fair game.
Yeah. He's not into scat. He doesn't like scat.
Scat. Connor knows
and
soccer.
I don't mean like that
Scatman John.
Yeah.
At Connor Knows Footy on Twitter, bringing a new show covering the MLS each week to the SJP World Media Network very soon, potentially first episode out this week.
Awesome.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. I used to watch a bit of the MLS when it was on like Channel 4, Channel 5 late at night. You know, and you only had like four or five channels at home, and that, you know, chuck it on when you get in from the pub, watch a bit of that, you know.
I just got to chuck this one in. I'm going to perform 2 Mags, 1 Cup, 5 nerds, never ever change.
Brilliant.
I would, Dan Griffin, I would do anything for love, but I won't do scat.
Connor asks, by the way, you have become a manager of a football club. What club would you manage? Who would be your first big signing? What formation would you play? What English league would you play in, from the Premier League to National League? Where do you think you would finish? That's a big old scope of questions there, Magsy.
It is all very football based as well.
Yes. Okay, I'm assuming you'd go for Burnley.
No. Whenever I get the latest iteration of Football Manager, I always tend to start with Oxford United.
Why is that?
I don't know. Me and one of my friends, Deck, once did a Oxford United kind of like 2-man run, and it's just the team that stuck with us. So every time a game come out, we just end up being Oxford United. So I've been them. Our first big signing was always someone like Kamar Roof, because Oxford, unfortunately, don't have a lot of money. So we'd end up getting someone like that. We play 4-3-3 usually with a target man and then 2 people playing off him. And we'd start in the very lowest leagues. I think Oxford are actually in a League 1 now, but usually they were in like League 2, and see how far we'd go. Usually we'd end up getting sacked when we got to the Premier League, because the clubs expect you to win everything, because we get that back-to-back promotions, and then we get sacked there. But yeah, we usually did all right until we got to the Premier League.
Yeah, okay. Connor has actually stipulated a Football Manager game. I think he's talking real life.
Well, I'm saying that's what I would do then. I know he wasn't saying in the game. I'm saying I would be Oxford United. Jesus wept.
All right, bloody hell. I mean, if you can pick any club to manage,
Oxford United, yeah.
Oxford United, yeah. Okay, fair enough. I'd do that too then. Fucking hell. I mean, I'd normally pick Manchester United, as that's my team.
Did they do well recently?
All right, mate. Not bad at all. You know, for every goal Liverpool scored that game, we're a point ahead of them. Thank you very much. And who would be your first big signing? Well, if money's no object, you just go out and just get the best. I suppose Mbappe would be quite handy, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't do too bad.
No, he'd be all right. I need him in the midfield player, because we're going to notice that now Casemiro is going to be missing for the next 4 freaking games. You know, we're back to McTominay again. Jesus. Formation, I like a back 4. Got to play a holding midfield player. 1 up top, 2 wide. Go from there, innit? You know, wherever. What depends on the players you've got, I suppose. Where would you finish? Top, of course.
Christmas
fucking
tree.
amazing.
Kind of go with the Christmas tree formation.
Yeah, I guess so. So I hope that answered it in a roundabout way, Connor. I guess.
Yeah, so Sa took the unrealistic way, and I went realistic. I wouldn't finish very well. I'd end up being sacked.
But then you get a big payout, mate. Just make sure you sign a long contract.
Exactly.
Steve-O at Total Steve-O on Twitter. He says, "This will be podcast themed. Podcasts you listen to regularly outside the CWF." Maxie, you don't listen to that many anymore, do you?
I listen to 0 now.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. But before that, I listened to hundreds. All the Visionaries Global Media stuff, the stuff from Chairshot, Unbooking the Territory. I was a podcast fiend at times 5 speed, which nobody has been able to replicate yet, apart from maybe Graham. But yeah, I listened to a lot. outside of if we're going outside of wrestling, I enjoyed a podcast called The Parapod, which is a couple of comedians called Ian Boldsworth, and I can't remember for the life of me the other guy's name, but he was a guy from Leeds, and basically it was they would talk about supernatural stuff, and one of the hosts didn't believe in it, and he'd always have a rational explanation, and the other host absolutely believed everything supernatural, hands down, no evidence required. So yeah, that's a really good podcast. The Parapod, I recommend that.
Yeah, okay. I listen to pretty much everything that's on this network, you know, because first of all, it's brilliant. And secondly, I kind of feel I have to listen back just in case, you know, someone says something they shouldn't. Dan Griffin, I'm looking at you. UTT, obviously, Bang Bang, obviously, Total Steve-O stuff as well. I like the show that Chris Bellis does with Scottish Danny. That's great. I gave Look at the Adjective podcast a listen. A lot of it depends on time, because I can listen when I'm at work, I can listen when I'm on the bus, but I don't listen to podcasts that much when I'm at home anymore, because if I've got headphones in, I'm normally editing or something like that. So it's a bit different now. I really enjoyed a show called Quickly Kevin. That was brilliant. That was a football based one. I don't know if they're still doing it now, but that Josh Widdicombe, the comedian, was on it. And it was called Quickly Kevin, from the bit of commentary from, I think it was Euro 96. Yeah, Southgate going out to take the penalty. And the commentator asks, "Quickly Kevin, will he score?" And he misses. And that's the name. But that's quite a funny podcast. And like I said earlier on the show, at the moment, I'm listening to a lot of Jeff Jarrett's podcast. I find it absolutely fascinating, the different stories. The guy's been around so many different territories, different companies, different scenarios. I find that absolutely fascinating. Really, really interesting show. But there's just so many podcasts. I mean, people in the chat now make so many brilliant shows. People who listen to Chain Wrestling and are part of our little corner of the internet that aren't with us live at the moment make so many great shows. I mean, you say about UTT, there's a little collection there. There's UTT Tank. There's Disgusting Awful that Scottish Danny does with Chris Bellis now, and there's so much going on. You know, it's just finding the time, Magsy, isn't it?
If you want surreal belly laughs and a lot of kind of awkwardness, definitely go check out the Five Nerds Go back catalogue, because that podcast was unfettered madness. But we are going to be on a podcast, or recording a podcast later this week. So
this is true.
It would be cruel of us not to mention that podcast. So I'm not going to. So fuck them. Fuck those two.
Well, I was going to leave them out of that list, because I do listen to that show every single week, and it honestly makes me look mental. I've said it several times to Morty when I record Murder in Mind with him. I look mental because I sit there on the bus on the way home from work listening, and I'm genuinely crying with tears rolling down my face sometimes. But there is a question referencing those two and their show later on, so I was going to bring them up in a little bit, you see.
Well,
so we'll get to that.
We'll ignore that question.
Okie doke. Steve-O also says, do you genuinely see a day where you go down the Patreon route? Chain wrestling, I don't think would ever be behind a paywall. I don't think that's us, Max, is it?
I mean, chain wrestling, probably not. The amount of work that goes into the group as a whole, it could be something that does happen. Maybe not so much for the podcast, but for like extra stuff, perhaps, because it's not always cheap to run a network. So sometimes you have to kind of like look to your listeners and your fans to kind of help finance that project. So as of now, no, but maybe in the future, the SJP World Media might have need for Patreon.
I mean, it is something I have looked into, you know, but as always with me, I do everything at a snail's pace and overthink it. And, you know, Magsy and my wife will both tell you, if you want me to come around to an idea, you've got to put it in my head about 6 weeks before it needs to happen, because it takes me that long to sort of figure out, okay, what about this? What about that? Okay, I'm on board now. Yeah, we had a new carpet laid literally today in the hallway and the stairs. I think my wife came
That's
out with
a
that
weird turn.
Well,
So you're setting up a Patreon to pay for your carpet? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
basically. But I mean, I think the wife put the idea of the new carpet in my head about 18 months ago. So it's that kind of scenario. But yeah, I mean, I have looked into it purely out of a curiosity standpoint and just seeing what the options are, because I do think there is potential for a lot of bonus material. And as you said, Magsy, it is time consuming. And even this platform that we're appearing to you on now via YouTube and so on, it costs money. You know, I'll be straight up and honest with everyone. I mean, that's why I say support the show by getting your t-shirts and so on. That small couple of quid we get can help cover some of the costs and so on. But again, it's very much a case of just looking at options at the moment. And the shows that everyone loves, the likes of Nitro Nights, Chain Wrestling and so on, I wouldn't want those to go behind a paywall, because I think we've built a little community here and I wouldn't want people to, you know. So yeah, there we go. And Steve-O finishes by saying, what bands are you listening to at the moment?
So I've been on a kind of 2000s dance kick recently.
Okay.
So not particular bands, because a lot of the artists are like one-hit wonder style music. But yeah, I've been listening to a lot of old school like dance.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's what I like to do. I like to dance.
Yeah, like Hadaway and stuff like that.
That's a bit more old school than I've been listening.
So that's where I mean, Hadaway.
I think that was like 90s. That was
totally. But that's what when people see, you know, sort of old school dances on, that's kind of where I go, really.
So it's more kind of like Time to Burn by Storm, Stretch and Burn, things like that.
I don't know what any of those are.
No, I didn't think you would.
I've been listening to a great deal of Five Finger Death Punch, actually. Mags was 40 when they bought that out 5 years ago. Amazing. I've been listening to a lot of Five Finger Death Punch over the last probably week or so, I guess.
Okay.
And then oddly, Sharon had an episode of Criminal Minds on the telly. You know, like I think it's like 5 Star, the channel or something like that. And you get Law and Order and Criminal Minds reran like sort of 10, 11 o'clock at night. And so it's on when I'm getting my stuff ready to go to bed for work. And there's an episode of Criminal Minds, and a Five Finger Death Punch song was featured on this episode of Criminal Minds. And it's so surreal because I hadn't listened to them for like 6 months. I started playing them, and then all of a sudden they're on my telly. How weird's that?
Yeah, I do get like that. I'll hear a song that I haven't heard for ages, and then I'll go on Spotify and listen to quite a few songs from that band or that artist. I did it recently with Spandau Ballet. God, in this. I think I saw an advert and it had gold on the advert, so I went and listened to a bit of Spandau Ballet. True Gold.
Those are classics, mate, aren't they? Brilliant.
Yeah,
stuff.
they are. They're brilliant songs.
Yeah, definitely. I put random shit on as well, mind. If I'm having a beer of an evening and I'm editing, and I get to a point where I finish my editing, but I'm still going to have another couple of beers for bed, I'll put certain Spotify playlists on, and I end up listening to like Ace of Base and Hadaway and really random shit, you know, because I'm drunk, basically. So
I can just imagine you singing along whilst editing.
Yeah, there we go. But I mean, I've listened to a bit of Therapy as well recently, the Trouble Gum album, because they're at the festival I go to in the summer, and I always like that album, so that's popped up on my.
I think you mentioned that before.
Yeah, they're a great band, and all the standards, Wasp, Maiden, and so on as well. So yeah, there we go. Morty at MortyJR5 on Twitter. He says, recast the A-Team with members of the CWF.
Okay, so we're looking at Face, Murdoch, Hannibal, and BA. Then
yes.
So BA has got to be Scottish Danny, hasn't it?
Has it?
The angry, violent one.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough.
And
Danny, are you scared of planes?
and milk. Do you not like here? I'll be here, drink this milk. How'd I get here?
Yeah. Okay.
Murdoch, who's the clown of the? I mean, we know what the answer is. It's Dan Griffin. Dan Griffin's
Well, yeah.
howling mad Murdoch.
Yeah, I'd give a shout for 5 Nerds Go in the chat tonight as well, mind putting out some gold there.
I mean, yeah, that's a good also run. Now, Face, who
The
could
ladies
be,
man, mate. The ladies man. That's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah. Because no disrespect to the CWF, they're all pretty fugly, aren't they?
Well, my wife's
They
in
are.
the chat.
She obviously she doesn't count because there was no girl members of the A team.
No, that's true. Okay.
So let's go with Face as King's pig's bladder, I think.
Well, yeah, because he can use Photoshop to make himself look however he wants.
Exactly. That's a
That
good
works.
shout.
Yeah,
That's an
brilliant.
absolutely great shout. So then that leaves the leader. Who is the leader? I mean,
I'd put a shout out for you in that role, Magsy, to be fair.
I mean, I do come up with all the good ideas. I love it when a plan does come together. So yeah, that's right. I'll take that. I can make a tank out of a few pipes and a spot welder when I'm locked in a garage. So yeah,
fair enough.
I'm happily Hannibal Smith, and I've also
Big
got
old
some
cigar.
cigars.
Yeah.
I've got some cigars. Yeah. So
there we go. There was sometimes a lady in the A team, wasn't there? And she'd drive Face's car sometimes for him and stuff like that.
So there you go, Shah. You get a spot as well. Guest spot.
And she was gorgeous as well, my love. There we go. Look at that. I'd
She
love
was
another cup of tea.
Well, he was gorgeous as well. Brilliant. I love how you meant that as a compliment, but you were also saying another woman was gorgeous.
No wrong with that, mate. No wrong with that. I quite often point out when I think other women are attractive. The wife will quite often point out when she thinks other men are attractive. We're that comfortable in our relationship that
that's
until it's bedtime and I go upstairs and cry into my pillow.
Was he better looking than me, Shah? No, sir. Here we go again.
Rob at UTT Rob on Twitter. He asks, who'd win? And there we go. This is the question about the Morty and Fitch podcast, a show that we are guesting upon this week, Magsy. Not coming out this week, but recording this week. Who'd win in a fight if you two had to face off against Morty and Fitch?
Us.
And what I asked, straight fight or a tag team contest?
Either or.
Okay.
We'd kick their ass. Have you seen what one of them is pistol whipped by his Polish wife, and the other one masturbates over car cleaning products. We would kick both their asses.
Okay. I'll go along with that. Like we said, you're the leader. So 5 Nerds Go. Last one off Twitter, but I do have a DM to close up on afterwards, Magsy. 5 Nerds Go says, would you rather have a porcupine attack your Todger or a honey badger attack you?
Never. They both sound horrific.
They do.
Going off topic, and this might be one for Dan to chip in the chat. But this weekend, me and the wife went to see Cocaine Bear.
Okay. Any good?
It's fucking brilliant. Scottish Danny would love it because it's a horror, but it's kind of like a comedy horror. It's amazing. I have never seen a bear that I love as much as the Cocaine Bear. It's brilliant.
Have you seen many bears for comparison?
Yeah, like Gentle Ben, like Yogi.
I have all of the many TV bears. That one's my favorite.
Cocaine Bear is the best.
Yeah,
and she loves her cocaine.
Fair play. Who doesn't? It's very Moorish, apparently.
But she eats like kilo bags of it at a time.
Right. Okay.
No, it's hilarious. If you get the opportunity to see it. It's fucking hilarious. Lorraine literally laughed out loud in the cinema when we watched it. It was brilliant. But anyway, none of those. Who would want any animal, never mind a porcupine attacking your Todger, but honey badgers are the hardest. They're the hardest animal on the planet, aren't they? They're the
But
ones.
this is the thing. If you break it down sensibly, I know that's ridiculous to say, but how vicious are porcupines? They got them spikes, which is their form of protection. But it's like hedgehogs are covered in spikes. You don't see hedgehogs picking fights with people, do you?
Yeah, but porcupines can fire out the spines, can't they? Like in attack.
What, like shoot them out of themselves?
Yeah, like arrows. Yeah,
Fuck off. Can they?
yeah, they can.
Why? That's my new favourite animal.
Well, not when it's attacking your todger.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. But I suppose a honey badger's vicious. If that's attacking you,
I've seen a video of a honey badger. It steals food from a snake. The snake bites the honey badger and it poisons it. The honey badger looks like it's dead. A couple of hours later, shakes itself off and then kills that very same snake. So no,
that's a hardcore animal.
They chase bears up trees.
Well, it just wants some drugs.
What's the share? Can you give me 3 for 100?
I would go with a porcupine after your todger, because if that's going to happen, that's a very specific point of attack. So you know where it's coming from, and you can just boot the little bastard away.
Well, you can play headers and volleys, I suppose, with porcupines. But yeah, I would rather be attacked in a small area by a porcupine than murdered to death by a honey badger.
Well, you say small area, mate. Speak for yourself, eh?
Figuratively speaking, it'd be a large porcupine.
A large porcupine. Finally, we have one from Connor via the DMs on Twitter at @chain_wrestling. And he asked, this was last minute, but if you had to support an MLS club, who would you support? And this ties in, of course, to the new show coming up, MLS in Focus, on the SJP World Media Network. Magsy, do you have a preference for an MLS club?
I am not caught up with MLS at all. I remember there used to be a New York, New Jersey Revolution, years and years ago. That was like in one of the first iterations of the MLS. So I'm actually going to Google the MLS table and have a look. Not to see who's top.
See who's top.
But to see like if any teams like jump out, because when the XFL came around the first time, I really liked the Las Vegas, was it Villains? So looking at these now, so we've got Atlanta United, Nashville, Cincinnati, Inter Miami. That's the Beckham team, isn't it? Inter Miami. Philadelphia, New England, Orlando, DC United, Columbus. That's the Crew.
Yeah, that's Connor's team.
New York City, the Man City kind of feeder club. Toronto, New York Red Bulls, Chicago, Montreal, and Charlotte Rock Bottom. Yeah, Charlotte and Montreal are out the running. Being a Patriot, I'm going to go with the New England, I think.
There was a team who every time they scored a goal, they would chainsaw a big fuck off log behind the goal. Honestly, they had like one of these. They had a tree that there's massive, like really old, so it's huge tree. And every time they'd score, this bloke would just chainsaw a slice off the end of the tree or end of this massive log,
like a round.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Every time they scored, so.
Benny Mac saying LA Galaxy, which I would have been my go-to, but I don't. Are they even a team now? Because
isn't there like two divisions, like the West and the East, or the North and the?
You're right. I'm only looking at the Eastern Conference. Yeah, so let's go through the Western Conference then. So St. Louis, LAFC, Seattle, Austin, San Jose, FC Dallas, Minnesota, Portland. They could be the ones with the logs.
It is Portland Jet.
Real Salt Lake, Sporting Kansas City, Vancouver, LA Galaxy, Colorado, and the Houston Dynamos. So yeah, I'm happy to stick with my pick of the New England.
Yeah, fair enough. I always like the idea of going to Houston. So maybe Houston Dynamos.
Yeah,
taking a game. Yeah.
Good pick.
I like the Columbus Crew kit. So if I was picking on kits, that one could be up there. But LA Galaxy were the ones that I always looked out for because Beckham and Robbie Keane played for them, didn't they?
Yeah, and
So
they were the kits you could generally get in the UK as well.
that's tricky. That is tricky. I have to give that some thought, I think. So I'm gonna have to pick a team now that we're gonna have a podcast about it on our network. So yeah, there you go. 5 nerds go. Portland Timbers. That would be the ones chainsawing the big lot.
I mean, how do you get? Can you imagine rocking up to an English football ground with a chainsaw? I don't think you get let in.
No, it's part of the club. It's not just a random fan.
No, I got it.
Right. Okay.
Thanks for.
Oh, you would get in. I mean, Millwall, you would, wouldn't you, with a chainsaw? They'd let you in. You know,
only if you promised to use it.
Thank you so much to everybody who joined in with our Ask Us Anything. Fantastic as always. Some really thought-provoking questions there. Hopefully, we did answer everything to the level you wanted us to, which I assume is quite a low expectation anyway.
It's got to be 18 live episodes, and if you've got high expectations, you are idiots.
Exactly. Magsy, anything in the chat before we talk a bit of wrestling?
Yeah, first we've got Cam is signing out because his goose is going to catch the wrestling on the podcast release. I mean, you could have lasted another 10 minutes, I'm sure, Cam, but yeah, we massively appreciate you coming in.
Cheers, Cam.
Dan Griffin says a podcast fiend at 5x speed is a hell of a catchphrase and a t-shirt in the making. Exactly, which you will be able to get very soon, I assume. Dan says his formation would be 4-4-2, and I'm assuming it would be wrote on the back of a cigarette packet, and he'd also have in his team Dave Benson and Paul Hedges. Connor says his go-to 3 for formations are 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1. They always seem to work the best with him. 5 Nerds Ago says, I do like that the Sunday watch along went downhill when Burnley got relegated and Liverpool started being wank. It all coincided perfectly. Props to Radio Techers.
Definitely. Yeah.
Going back, 5 Nerds Ago says Meatloaf is anti-anal. Yeah, because he won't do scat. Ever since a terrible experience, 5 Nerds inspired Bat Out of Hell. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's the chat caught up with. The channel was 5 USA. Apparently.
Yes, thank you, Sharon.
And Benny Mac, evening, sir.
Hello.
Welcome late to the party, sir.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. Okay, Magsy, I suppose we had better get on with some wrestling chat because we have 2 matches to look at this week.
We certainly do. So let's crack on.
Let's get ready to rumble!
So then, a 50-50 poll. Dan Griffin must have been chuckling away to himself like the little giggly pixie he is, because I know he loves a 50-50. But there we go. Both selections drawing, both selections even. Gonna go through both, Magsy.
Hooray!
Where do you want to start, mate?
At the end, both matches were right. What's next week's picks?
Oh, okay.
Let's go with what I watched first. I watched the TNA one first. So
okay, yeah, no worries. Let me just ferret through my notes to find that one then.
Because you had the Backlash one up first, didn't you?
I did, mate. I did, because that's the one that I watched first. But there we go. Yes, my selection on the poll 2 weeks ago was from the TNA pay-per-view No Surrender 2005, the main event for the NWA World title, held by Raven, which I still think is a bit odd. I don't remember that happening, but there we go. Defended against Abyss in a dog collar match. Now, this is Raven's first defense, we're told several times on commentary.
Over and over again, we're told that.
Over and over again, indeed. TNA 2005, Magsy. Is this something you've seen a lot of?
Not a jot.
Nah, nor me. I thought I'd seen more, but looking into around that time, I don't remember anything.
But the good thing is, this was a YouTube link, and it's uploaded by the actual TNA
Yes.
account, and there's plenty on there. When you get like the recommended tab at the side of the screen, there's lots of TNA full length pay-per-views on there. So if like us, you have missed big chunks of TNA history, you can at least catch up and watch some matches, because it was sometimes really good wrestling. It was unique with the six-sided ring, and especially the X division was some very innovative wrestling. So
yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of TNA for quite a few years, but this period, I think maybe just before I got into it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I remember it being on Bravo and Challenge and all that sort of stuff, and me and Sharon used to watch quite a bit of it, but this has been a bit early, I think. But yes, both competitors come to the ring already wearing the collar. So the chain is just led in the ring, just attached to the collars, which I thought was, a bit of a different way of doing things. Quite a unique touch.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, not that it is it? Fair enough.
No, I mean, there's not a lot I can add to that. Yeah, you're right. They came to the ring with the collars already on. It's not how it's normally done. Normally, you would get like a wrestler who the referee would struggle to get the collar on, just to kind of play up the heat in the match. But yeah, they both were ready, prepared for this match.
I mean, to be fair, I don't remember many dog collar matches.
No, but it's the same kind of thing with like Texas bull rope matches, or any matches where two wrestlers are kind of like tied together with some sort of implement.
Yeah, no, I get you. Speaking of collars, Jeremy Borash, the ring announcer, he had a set of collars on that shirt, didn't he? Bloody hell! If you threw him off a cliff, he'd be like a hang glider.
Yeah, poor Jeremy. Before we even get to the match, though, like I said earlier, I watched. I think I may have skipped one or two of the matches, but I watched a lot of this pay-per-view, and how underrated of a commentator was Mike Tenay.
Oh, yeah.
So good. I mean, Don West, God love the guy. He was passionate. But Mike Tenay he had such a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, I really I think he's underrated in the pantheon of wrestling commentators.
Yeah, he turns up on WCW every now and again when we're looking at it for Nitro Nights. And something that Danny and I noticed is there's occasions where he turns, because he'll cover like the cruiserweights or the Conan's matches and so on, because it's the outside of WCW characters, I guess. And there are moments where Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone and Dusty Rhodes, depending on who's what show he's on, sound like they're just openly taking the piss because he knows the name of a proper move. And sometimes it's funny. Other times, there's one particular pay-per-view, it went a bit far, and it really seemed like they were just picking on the guy.
Yeah. I know there's a storyline later on in TNA's lifespan where he's actually involved. I think it's the one where Tony Schiavone's like angling for a job. So he gets involved in that. But after wrestling, he did a podcast about betting, I think.
Okay.
The professor, but apparently he's kind of just fell off the map. That podcast kind of wrapped up, and you don't hear anything from him. I don't think he's got any social media. So I hope everything's okay with Mr. Tenay.
Yeah, definitely. Something I noticed as well, it's going to be difficult to not draw comparisons, I think, at times, because we're watching the two matches back for this particular recording, Magsy. This is obviously 2005. Our other selection was 2007. So, only 2 years between them. They look completely different. This and TNA looks incredibly dated, whereas the WWE contest from 2007 could have been put on last week. Yeah.
And I think that's the production quality of the two companies. This match, for me, it felt like something you would have seen in the Attitude Era. it didn't seem very 2005 for me. This felt like ECW in their last kind of days. Now that may have been the kind of market that TNA was going with, especially with Raven at the helm. But yeah, you're right. It did feel very, very dated.
I think you're spot on as well with that kind of ECW feel, because it was just carnage, wasn't it? There was, I mean, the chairs come out straight away, don't they? Very, very early on, lots of chairs. Raven's throwing loads and loads and loads into the ring. Abyss ends up getting sent into the corner where a chair is set up, sort of stuck in the ropes. Very early.
It was a spot that they did quite a few times. I mean, it makes absolute sense knowing that you're tethered to your opponent, but they go for this same spot quite a few times, where basically Raven or Abyss pulls on the chain and that drags their opponent into an obstacle. A unique way of getting some offense in, I suppose, but I do think they went to the well on it a few too many times. One thing I did notice though is, and it's not something I've ever really kind of thought about until watching this match. When you are in a match like a chair match or a dog collar match or a bull rope match, you have to be very selective how you get in and out of the ring.
Yes.
And it dawned on me whilst watching this match that especially with it being a 6-sided ring, there's so many kind of like ropes and kind of like ways to get out of the ring. They had to be very precise. If Raven got out at one side of the ring, Abyss had to get out at that same side, otherwise they'd end up just being tangled up. Yeah, it's something that I've never thought of before, but it dawned on me in this just how incredibly scripted going in and out of the ring had to be.
Yeah, you got to really sort of pay attention, have your wits about you, I guess, haven't you? For that, something we didn't see a lot of for me was, well, Raven does it here early on. He wraps the chain around his hand. He misses punching Abyss. He actually punches the ring post, but I would have thought it's not like, you know, it's a bull rope or anything like that. It's a sodding great metal chain. I would have thought the chain would have been used more as a weapon.
Yeah, I mean, we do get it at the very early parts of the match. There's a bit where Raven is whipping Abyss with the chain, but it doesn't last that long. It's in the first couple of minutes, and then we get into almost a standard hardcore match.
Yes,
a standard tables match more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think exactly the same. The chain, I don't think, was necessary here. There's so many table spots. There's the thumbtacks later on as well, obviously, and the chairs and so on. I don't really think the chain, the dog collar thing was necessary for anything they did.
Well, we get the hangman spot.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But that actually leads to the chain being took out of the equation altogether because essentially Abyss is hung over the ropes and then the chain is wrapped round to hang him over, but he undoes the dog collar to get out of that, which makes the chain then redundant, and it does go to a typical hardcore match. But there's a few spots that the chain comes into play. The ones we've mentioned about being pulled into the ring post or into the steps. There's a spot where Abyss is pushed off the entrance ramp, which it just looked ridiculous because it's about 3 foot off the ground. Yeah. Essentially,
it felt like it was going to be so much bigger, didn't it?
The tables were set up and they were about a foot lower than the actual entrance ramp, which it just looked like if you were doing that spot on your bed, like as a child. But the chain comes into play there because Abyss pulls on the chain whilst he's been incapacitated on the floor, and Raven ends up being pulled through another table. So there is some clever uses for the chain, but not enough to warrant it being the main focal point of the match, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. So what I did want to talk about was the staple gun.
Typical
Again,
ECW.
Not necessary with the chain is not necessary for that to work, but stapling the money to Abyss's head. I enjoyed that, because I don't think you see a lot of, especially now, you don't see that at all nowadays, do you? I mean, we're sort of pushing 20 years on
I think
from
the
this
last
match,
thing close to that was the pizza cutter incident in AEW.
Okay, yeah.
But you're right. I loved Abyss's overreaction to being stapled. This is a guy who has been put through tables and hit with chairs, and then getting stapled. It's the most overreacting that he's ever done, and you can kind of tell it was the overreacting was to help open the cut up because he's clawing at his own face a little bit. But yeah, that it was fun. The fact that he was pulling out like dollar bills and stapling them to Abyss's head.
Raven bleeds as well. He's sent into the ring post on the outside, isn't he? At this point, I think I've even got a timestamp down here. 17 minutes, 16, 17 minutes in, I'm thinking, how exactly do you win? Because we're getting told by the commentary team that you can't give up. I think in a promo earlier in the show, it has to just be a pin. You can only win by a pin. But the fact is, we're over a quarter of an hour into the match, and it's not been mentioned again during the match. So watching it out of context, I'm thinking, okay, well, nobody's going around touching corners like you do sometimes with these kind of stipulations. Nobody's even tried to pin anyone yet at this point. The first pinfall attempt doesn't come until 17 minutes in, and the match is only 25 minutes long. I've got no idea how you win this at this point.
Well, by a pin, I've just told you. But
I know that.
I get the point. If this were WWE, it would be forced down your throat that it would be a pin. Absolutely, Michael Cole would mention it 50 times, and that's kind of the difference between this TNA and WWE. So I can understand the confusion that perhaps if you were watching this match, like I said, out of context, and you didn't kind of catch all the promos beforehand, then it'd be what is the point of this match? What is the aim of the match?
Just beating the piss out of each other for the sake of it, until somebody dies. The Raven effect DDT is hit for a close 2 count. We also have the black hole slam, which is Abyss's finisher. That gets a 2 count as well.
Which I've always thought is a cool move.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when somebody that big is doing it as well. James Mitchell gets involved, Abyss's manager, and
he snaps the cane over Raven's back.
Very carefully make sure it's facing the right direction so the gimmicked bit works. It didn't look great. This is when Abyss takes the collar off. So again, the chain aspect of the match is completely freaking pointless.
Absolutely redundant now.
The thumbtacks arrive. But what I liked about this is that both guys are obviously wearing, their standard ring gear, and you do get some people who wrestle in these matches who will wear jeans and a t-shirt because of what they're going to put their bodies through.
Yeah.
But Abyss rips off Raven's shirt so that when he
rips the front of it, and
Raven gets it.
Raven does the rest of it for him.
So when he puts him he slams him into the tacks, you get a sort of the extra image of it, the extra sort of, it's not going into clothes, shall we say? It's more impactful, maybe.
Yeah. Yes and no, because there is one point and near the end where Raven is, I think he goes for the even floor or the Raven effect, and he lands back first into the tacks. And the commentary are making a massive deal. Oh my God, he's gone flesh first into the tacks. And then we get a close up of Raven, and not one thumbtack has stuck in his body. So, that kind of didn't work. But he sold it like there were thousands. I give him props for that. But it didn't kind of work. So maybe he needed those, that T-shirt for the thumbtacks to kind of get some purchase, perhaps.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair point. Cassidy Riley arrives and gets put through a table. I got no idea who this dude is and why he's here.
So they do explain it a little bit on commentary. This is a guy who Raven attacked and broke his fingers. And because of that, he became a devout follower of Raven, part of Raven's flock or whatever the group is called now. But he comes in and just gets destroyed straight away, put through slammed through a table. So his help was it was just it wasn't there, was it? Yeah, it just wasn't there at all.
This does lead though to Abyss getting power bombed onto the tacks by Raven because of the distraction from his friend there. Before we then eventually get to the finish where we're setting up for a choke slam by Abyss, which is then countered into a Raven effect DDT onto the tacks. Raven wins. Jarrett comes out. Rhino turns up. And then the show goes off the air.
And again, I was fortunate, maybe that's a strong word, that I'd actually watched a lot of this pay-per-view. So Jarrett was not happy with all these Johnny come latelys coming into his company, his world, which I think is the link to his podcast, basically stealing spots. So he lost the title to Raven, but he was also the number one contender, and that was taken from him for Abyss. So he had a massive axe to grind with these two, and he was also meant to be in a feud with Rhino, but it turns out that Rhino actually sided with Jarrett and then took out Raven, and yeah, like I said, it ends with lol. Jarrett must pause.
Great entrance theme though. Brilliant stuff. I love that tune.
It's great.
Out of 10, Maxie, what are you thinking?
Do you know? I don't think it's it's not a dog collar match for me because, like we've said, the chain doesn't come into play enough for it to warrant that. But as a standard hardcore match, it was fun to watch. I mean, you get the kind of the big guy versus smaller guy dynamic. I think Abyss is very underrated for a big guy who can do the things that he did, even though he was clearly a Wish.com version of Mankind. I think in the ring he was incredibly talented and willing to put his body on the line. Raven, I mean, he's been playing the same character in every single company he's ever been to, and it absolutely works. So I enjoyed this match. Is it something I'd go back and watch multiple times? Probably not. But I enjoyed it for what it was. So I think 6.5, maybe.
Okay. I got 7 in front of me. Same reasons as you. I thought it was decent. It was good enough. Dog collar probably wasn't needed, as you say. But when it comes to, garbage wrestling, hardcore wrestling, it's not exactly my cup of tea. But at the same time, I don't mind a little bit of it. And this ticked that box for me. So yeah, it was an enjoyable 5 minutes, mate. I
think TNA give Raven a lot of kind of free reign with because love him or hate him, he has got a great mind for the business. He's very innovative when it comes to kind of match types. I mean, he's got the whole Clockwork Orange monster funhouse blah 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 matches. So I think when it comes to match stipulations, he has a lot of ideas. Not all of them great, but still you need a filter to weed out the chaff, I suppose. But I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was an enjoyable match.
Yeah, fair shame. So then the other half of the poll that also won, drew, got 50-50, whatever, but we're looking at it, is the WWE title match from Backlash 2007. John Cena defending against Shawn Michaels, Edge, and Randy Orton. first of all, Magsy, these are 4 fantastic entrance themes, even though it's not the ones that maybe are most well known for these individuals.
Yeah, the Edge one was jarring though.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get the pyro.
Well, this is it.
You see him like putting the horns up, and to not get that pyro and just see him just stood there.
Yeah,
that was weird. But you're right. The entrance musics were amazing, and it's interesting to go back to this era and see how much John Cena was loved at this time. This was before like basically Cena sucks. The crowd were hot for him, and HBK especially. They absolutely loved him. Yeah, it was that was interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that I understand why they didn't do it, but I think it would have been worth putting the trigger on Shawn Michaels winning the title at some point around this time. He main evented WrestleMania. He did the hour-long match on Raw with Cena. He was so over at this point, and in that main event picture, I think even I'm not talking, a big moment at Mania or anything like that. Winning it on a B pay-per-view, potentially holding it for a couple of months, do a few storylines with it. At the time, Michaels was so good in the ring as well, and so over as a babyface. I think it would have been beneficial at that moment to have at least given it a go. But obviously, it was not meant to be. So,
I agree. I mean, what did he end his career on? Just was it 4 world titles?
4 world titles. Yeah.
I mean, when you think of Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, he's on there without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh yeah,
and to have only had 4 relatively short runs as champion as well. I mean, and then you look at like guys like Austin who only had 5 short runs with the championship, and then you look at Roman Reigns, whose current run is probably longer than all of Austin's and Shawn Michaels runs put together. Yeah,
I'd have thought so. And also, we mentioned him earlier on. Put it into a little bit of context with Michaels only having, say, 4 title runs. Jeff Jarrett is actually now listed as a 10-time world champion.
That's fucking ridiculous. None of them he booked himself.
Yeah, and the other one only lasted for 2 days in WCW because his mate Russo was booking. No, I like Jeff Jarrett. Leave him alone. This match for me, Maxie, is kind of, there's not a clear line, but it does feel like it's broken into 2 halves a little bit.
Yeah.
The beginning.
You're very right.
Yeah, the beginning feels like pretty much any other multi-man match in WWE's history. It's like people are taking it in turns, and whilst 2 guys are working, whether it's a triple threat or a fatal 4-way or whatever, a ladder match with 8 people, whatever, whilst 2 people are doing something, everyone else is selling on the outside.
Correct.
That happens a lot for the first half, but then maybe not exactly halfway through, but the last 5 to 10 minutes, we get everyone involved with lots of different moving parts, and it really changed my opinion of this match the second half. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. The first probably 3/4 of this match, it struggled to keep my attention because it was so generic as a multi-man. You're exactly right. I mean, I got the original face-offs because you had kind of a Randy Orton and Edge trying to play politics in the promos leading up to this match. So that made sense. You had the feud between Michaels and Cena from the week before. So them getting a face-off made sense. But it happened way too many times after that. It felt to me, as you aptly described it, as people waiting to take the turn to have their kind of battle, and other people sat on the outside selling. And that for me, it goes on way too long.
Yeah. And, I mean, you see some triple threats, and I think it's done. Well, I'll say triple threat because that happens more than the fatal 4-way, doesn't it? Normally. There was one, I don't know who he was facing, but Lesnar put somebody through the table on the outside of an F5. And then it was just down to the 2 guys in the ring for a while, whilst the other guy sold the F5 through a table. That makes sense. as a viewer watching and trying to suspend my disbelief, that makes sense. If somebody just takes a clothesline on the outside and then is selling for so long, that I struggle with that, because it's like you may take 4 or 5 clotheslines in the space of 10 seconds in the ring, and you won't sell that long. It's almost like
early on in the match, there's a point where I think it's Cena punches Orton, and then he goes out, and Shawn Michaels punches Edge, and these are just a punch, and those two are then out of the ring while Cena and Shawn Michaels do a few spots to then come in at the perfect time to break up a pin or to send one of the two in the ring out so that they can then take their place. It felt incredibly scripted, which a wrestling match should try to not look scripted, but this felt it was like a pantomime for the first 3/4 of the match.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at the talent in this match as well. You would kind of hope for a bit more for that period, I think. We start with John Cena and Shawn Michaels, and then, as you said, eventually we get Edge and Orton. They have their turn, and then everyone's on the outside, and Shawn Michaels hits a moonsault from the top rope to the floor, which was quite a high spot for so early in the match, and it got a good reaction. Cena hits that kind of clunky looking leg drop from the top, but he does it. Yeah, but he does it. It's a double leg drop, and he hits it on both Edge. Is it both Edge and Shawn Michaels, or Edge and Orton?
I think it's Edge and Michaels.
Right. Yes, and I quite enjoyed that. That's something you don't see very often, is it?
Especially from the 5 moves of Doom John Cena.
Yes, there we go. We then get a little bit of time where Orton and Cena are taking their turn, I suppose, and we get the Garvin stomp from Orton. I used to like it when he used to use that, just go around stamping on random body parts and so on. Yeah, it's so simple but effective, isn't it?
Yeah, and I didn't know it was called the Garvin stomp.
Yeah, Ronnie Garvin used to use it back in the 80s.
And I knew it more as the Malenko.
Oh, okay.
Dean Malenko used to do it a lot.
Okay, maybe I've got that wrong then, but I thought it was referenced at some point.
I'm sure you were right. I was kind of tuned out with the commentary because I was tuned out with a lot of the match. This is one of those matches where I had to rewind it quite a few times because my eyes had glazed over, because you watch and that feels almost disrespectful because of the talent what's in the match, but it's because it's so generic as a fatal four-way. I feel like we could have put any 4 wrestlers in these spots and we would have seen pretty much the same match until we get to kind of the end. I think the point that started to get my attention was when we got the double Boston Crab, or the double single leg Boston Crab.
The double single leg, yeah. And Cena does this. Is it called the natural selection when Charlotte Flair does it? That sort of forward flip thing Mr. Perfect used to do.
The blockbuster, like the blockbuster.
Yeah. And he does that to the pair of them to make the save, which I thought was quite spectacular as well. And then everyone bumps for Super Cena, don't they? On the shoulder block. Everyone has a turn at taking a few bumps for Cena.
Those shoulder blocks are so terrible. I mean, everyone is in the perfect spot for him to bounce off the ropes and shoulder block. I think he hit the spinning proto bomb on Edge at one point, and then does like the 5-knuckle shuffle.
Yeah.
We
have a load of the STFs then, don't we? You're saying about things looking shit. We have a load of the STFs.
It's the worst.
It's so bad.
I mean, the STF done right looks absolutely painful with the leg bent over and then stretching the neck. But Cena, the way kind of like he puts his arms over the head of his opponent, they have to do all the work stretching their own neck because he's nowhere near their neck. So for Edge, and then I think Orton gets put in it as well. They are selling nothing. It's absolutely nothing. I hate when Cena does that.
It's crap. It is so crap. Shawn Michaels comes in and makes the save on Orton whilst he's in this rubbish STF, and then Michaels kind of goes through his every wrestler's got those sort of selection of moves that's sort of almost like their highlights, isn't it? Michaels goes for his atomic drops, the flying forearm, the nip up. Then we start getting top rope elbows until one is interrupted from the top, and he gets caught in this kind of weird avalanche 4-man spot where they come all crashing down together, don't they?
Yeah, well, I think Cena was meant to do kind of like a super FU attitude adjustment, and then Edge and Orton essentially turned it into a Tower of Doom, which it looked unique, I suppose, for a Tower of Doom, but yeah, it was a ha-ha spot.
Yes, there we go. A double FU gets teased.
Yeah, well, we get the spot where Cena goes for an FU, then it gets reversed into the execution, and then reversed back into the FU, and then back into the Edge-O-Matic, which I thought was a cool spot. But yeah, we do get the tease of the double, the double FU. Not quite pulls it off though.
But this is where it's really picking up pace now, isn't it? And everyone is.
This is where this match gets really good. This last 5-7 minutes. If this was just a match, or maybe cut down the beginning of 5-10 minutes and then go to this would have rated way higher for me. But this last few minutes it's brilliant chain wrestling.
Yeah, it is. It's really, and there's so many moving parts, and this is where I think the WWE are quite good with regards to when they cut from camera to camera, because there are so many moving parts. You don't tend to miss anything, which can be, that finger can be pointed at TNA, at ECW, at WCW, and so on. But also, you get the surprise aspect. Sometimes when Randy Orton's hitting an RKO or Edge goes for a spear or Sweet Chin Music flies into the screen, you don't know it's coming because the camera angle is there set in such a way that it's a surprise. And I think it's really, really well done from a production standpoint, Mags.
Yeah, and I think it helps that these 4 guys they've got finishing moves or signature moves that don't need a lot of setup, so they can be hit pretty quick. I mean, Cena's FU is probably the one that needs the most setup because he's got to pick someone up on his shoulders. But you look at the RKO, it's called RKO out of nowhere for a reason. You've got the super kick that can come from absolutely any point in the match. You've got the spear can come from anywhere. So these are 4 really good finishers to have an exciting end to a match, and everyone gets their moves in, and it gets to a point where you don't know who is going to win this match because there's somebody ready to pounce with their finishing move after someone's just done theirs. It gets really, really exciting.
Which is kind of how you'd imagine a fatal 4-way to be, a multi-person match to be. It should be more difficult getting the pinfall because there's more people around to interfere. So the ending felt, even though obviously it's going to take a lot of work to set this up, and that finishing sort of few segments going into the actual finish itself, I imagine there's quite a few, meetings in the back and run-throughs and so on to get the timing right. It still felt quite organic because you're going to always have an extra body there to try and break things up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we come to the finish itself then. And again, like we said, the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes of this match it is superb action. What they do is fantastic. But the finish itself, Magsy, talk us through that, because I thought this was so clever.
Yeah, so from what I remember, you have Cena going for the FU, then we go for the double one. HBK goes for the Sweet Chin Music, but Orton comes in and does the RKO, which is he goes for the pin. Cena then breaks that up. Edge is able to get the execution. Edge then goes for I think he goes for a spear, and then does Cena do a leapfrog? I think Cena leapfrogs him.
He hits Orton, doesn't he?
Yeah, he pushes Orton pushes Edge towards Cena. Cena goes for the FU. Orton gets pushed into a spear. We then get the FU on Edge. Shawn Michaels is in, hits the sweet music, and you think that everybody's down. That's the win. But
Yes.
Cena falls on Orton. HBK collapses due to exhaustion, and we get the 3 count from a knocked out John Cena on top of Orton, and Shawn Michaels just hasn't got the energy to break the pin up. So, it was Cena won essentially by being super kicked.
Yeah, and you get a little bit of afters, don't you? With Shawn Michaels saying, I'm better than you. You know it, I know it, and so on. And I just watched that moment there, and I thought they should have pulled the trigger on Shawn around this time.
Yeah.
They should have just done it.
The frustration he showed as well. He was angry that his finishing move ended the match, but he didn't get the win, and he was just a second too late. Yeah. Maybe if not pulling the trigger on Shawn winning now, but definitely it looked like he was the right person at the time, I suppose, to be champion.
Out of 10, mate.
Do you know, if we were going to judge it off the first 15 minutes, I would say a 4, I suppose.
Okay.
Because it's so generic. It's a match we've seen thousands and thousands of times, but that last 5 minutes elevates it so much. I could happily watch that last 5 minutes over and over again. So for that, it bumps it by 3 easily. So I'm going to go for a 7.
Yeah, I got exactly the same. So I score it the same as what I scored the TNA match, actually, which is funny because it's 2 completely different types of wrestling match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They both had their faults, but I think there's enough entertainment there. I would recommend anyone listening or anyone live in the chat now, go back and check these matches out, because there is enough entertainment there and enough good moments there to take something from, I guess.
But as you said, these are night and day in terms of wrestling matches. Absolutely opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, totally. So there we go. Maxie, where do you want to go next week?
So there's loads of options.
I
mean, in these matches alone, you have 6 different directions you could go in just using the wrestlers. But I'm not using any of the wrestlers in this match or in either match. What I'm actually using is a match that was on the TNA No Surrender card. I think it was the co-main event, was Sean Waltman versus AJ Styles.
Interesting. Okay.
And we haven't seen a lot of Sean Waltman, 6X Pack on this show. And we certainly haven't seen a lot of him in his first major gimmick in wrestling, which was the 1-2-3 Kid. And I was reminded recently of a match that he had where he was challenging for the WWF title. And it's highly and almost unanimously named as the best match in Raw history. So I want to go, and I need to find the date. I want to go to the 1st of July, I think it is, 1994, or that could be the 7th of January. No, yeah, it's definitely the 7th of January, I think. Either way, it's in 1994. On Raw, Bret Hart, the defending WWF champion, takes on the 1-2-3 Kid, aka Sean Waltman.
In 94, Bret didn't win the title until March.
So it is 1st of July then.
Yeah, because January Rumble was the one he drew with Luger. So, yeah. Okay. That is one hell of a... I haven't seen that in so long, but it is fantastic. Bret in 94 was so good, wasn't he?
Yeah. I saw... I think it was a shoot interview with X-Pac, and he said that this match, Bret was the most giving person ever, he said. And after the match, he personally thanked Bret for making him look as good as he did. He doesn't think he's had a better match in his career than this one. Oh, yeah.
I'd so happily watch that next week. I'd love to get into that. That sort of new generation era. I don't think we've seen enough of either.
And it's their only singles match between the two ever. They didn't run this match on house shows or anything like that. So this, I mean, I watched this match recently, and I'm happily going to watch it again if it wins. It's so damn good. To say this was a one and done, no kind of like practicing on house show loops. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is absolutely. I'll be honest. I'm going to vote for you. You say that there's many options because we've got 6 wrestlers in the matches alone that we've looked at, and then of course you've gone down the card and found other options from that as well. I kind of screwed my own head up looking at all the different options we could go through. I was like, okay, we've got Shawn Michaels here. I want to watch a Shawn match. Shawn's one of my favorites of all time. Oh, but then we haven't seen a lot of Orton, and maybe I can find a John Cena match that's actually really good, and we can talk about that. And I thought, well, we don't see a lot of TNA. I basically just got lost in my own head. So I then decided, you know what, I'm just going to look at the arena. And
I found a Barry Windham match.
We got Barry Windham versus so I then looked at the TNA with regards to a venue. You can't look at TNA arena or the venue to try and pick a match from because it's the same
it's
place.
all TNA. Yeah, it's the Impact Zone.
Exactly. So the Backlash 2007 was held in the Phillips Arena. So I had a little look at what was in the Phillips Arena. And first of all, the Hall of Fame ceremony in, I think it was 2011, was held there. And I thought, oh, brilliant. I could look at the Hall of Fame class that year and maybe link with that. I thought I love doing links that are sort of a little bit sort of skew-whiff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Shawn Michaels went in that year, and I've already excluded Shawn from going. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is proving to be a bit tricky. So I looked down the list of what other shows have been there, and there ain't a lot, Magsy. There's like a random 2000 episode of Nitro. The Day One pay-per-view last year was in that arena.
Okay.
A couple of Survivor Series, but not much happened. The absolute standout for me, just because of the match type, as opposed to remembering if it's any good or not, was that the Phillips Arena, where Backlash 2007 was held, was also where the 2010 edition of the Royal Rumble was held. So I'm just going to put forward the 2010 Royal Rumble. But I don't think it's going to win because X-Pac versus Bret Hart is fucking incredible.
Yeah, but that matters nothing to the CWF. A lot of the time they want to hurt us. Okay. So good matches go by the
Royal Rumble can't be bad.
I mean,
93 was shit, wasn't
it? Most Royal Rumbles are very, very good.
Yeah.
Or at least entertaining, especially if you want to listen to us saying punchy, kicker, stompy a lot, because that's what happens in the majority of Royal Rumbles until you get to like the end. But yeah, I mean, the 2010 Royal Rumble, I don't remember watching it recently. So
I've not seen it probably since it aired, so it doesn't stand out in my head as being.
Yeah, I go on. Gem. Yeah, I go on Royal Rumble kind of binges pretty regularly. So I've probably seen it since then, but I don't think anything really stands out about it. So yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and see that if it wins.
If it wins. Okay. Those are your options on the poll this week then. The poll will be up later in the week on our Twitter account at @chain_wrestling. Make sure you vote and retweet. And also, chuck a tweet on there and give us your reasons as to why you're voting, which way you vote. It's always interesting when people do that. Your options are Sean Maltman, the 1-2-3 Kid, versus Bret the Hitman Hart for the WWF Championship on the 1st of July 1994 edition of Monday Night Raw, or the 2010 Royal Rumble match. Again, poll will be up later in the week. Magsy, do you want to have a quick scan through our chat before we depart, my friend?
Yep. 5 Nerds Ghost says that Abyss is one of the top 5 big men in the last 20 years of wrestling. Yeah, he's no great Carl Lee, is there? But he's certainly super talented. I know that's grim. King's Pig's Bladder just shouts violence, and 5 Nerds shouts my world. Like I said, I watched a lot of the promo, and there's a lot of the pay-per-view, and there's so many Jeff Jarrett promos where he's talking about this being his world, and it's like, we get it. We get this was your gimmick. It was very reminiscent of when he used to call everyone slapnuts. Just he latched onto a gimmick and he said it every other word. It was ridiculous. Scottish Daddy says facials on point. I'm assuming he means our facials, or maybe he means the facials of Shawn Michaels. Oh, one thing I did notice about Shawn Michaels, he's not as wonky-eyed in this match as he is now. His eyes are almost, but there is a point where at the beginning of the match they're all doing the face off, and Edge says to Shawn Michaels, "Look at me in the eyes," and I like the child that I am, giggled because obviously he can look at two people's eyes at the same time. Danny also says he remembers X-Pac saying in an interview that Vince wanted to bring him back as the man because he was the kid. That would have been clever.
Oh, that's quite good, yeah.
Scott Daddy also says also having Macho and Jay on the commentary makes it better. Yeah, it does. It really does. And he says the 2010 Royal Rumble has a great theme song. I've just actually looked it up, and it also it's the one with the poster where John Cena stood with his arm crossed, and then everybody's like behind him in kind of like the V, and there's a young Cody Rhodes right at the back. Literally on the back of one of the rows, just behind, peeking his head behind Mark Henry, which, it's a little call forward to 13 years on. Either one of those will be interesting to watch. It's only 49 minutes long as well, the 2010 Royal Rumble.
Okay. Well, that is short, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go then. Thank you so much to everybody who tweeted the show, got involved in our non-wrestling topic, got involved in the chat live tonight, listens back on the audio version later in the week. You are hugely appreciated. Magsy, whereabouts can people find you online to get pretty much blanked and ignored, apart from the one day a week where you jump on?
Again, I want to piggyback off what Sar just said. You guys are absolutely amazing, and when it shows, like when we have a week off due to illness or whatever, that you guys don't just go away and find something else. You stick with us, and we will always massively appreciate that. But if you do want to be ignored on social media, it's down here at Podfather Mags. Or if you are a bit more down with the kids and you want to be ignored on TikTok, you can follow me on there at Mags All Pods. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Or you can listen to the Morty and Fritch podcast in the next couple of weeks to listen to me and Sarah absolutely demolish everyone in the pub quiz. So look forward to that.
Mate, you got me as your partner, unless there's any Barry Windham specific questions.
What wrestler wore camouflage and had a mustache? This is my time to shine.
Anything I am involved in, you can follow or find via the network that carries this show. That's at SJP World Media on Facebook and Twitter and all your podcast players and platforms. Make sure you're chucking us a follow, a subscribe, tick your notifications off and all that sort of stuff, so you know when shows are going live or shows are dropping podcast versions as well. And there's again so much going on, I can't even list it. We've got new shows coming literally this week, stuff looking at TV, stuff looking at wrestling, fantastic hosts all over the place. Make sure you go and check that out at SJP World Media on Facebook and Twitter. But most importantly, you can follow this show itself on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that TikTok thingamy at @chain_wrestling. That's at @chain_wrestling. Magsy, I'm off now to go and watch more TNA for nothing on YouTube before the bastards still start trying to charge me in about 3 weeks' time. I'll speak to you next week, my friend.
My world.